Welcome to Get Known Be Seen WebTV. I'm your host, Trish Springsteen, and I'm welcoming you to our show today. This particular one is one I'm really looking forward to. My guest on here is not only an expert who will help you get known, be seen, but she's also an author. So we're going to be looking at both sides of what Kim does. So welcome, Kim Thompson-Pinder. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Trish. It is such an honor to be on your show. And it was such an honor to have you on my podcast. So, if you want to hear my interview with Trish, then go to www.authortoauthority.com/podcast. And I suggest you do it. She shared some really great nuggets in there.
Oh, thank you, Kim, because I know we're going to get through some really great information from you. And just before we get into our lovely conversation, I'll just share a little bit of a background about who Kim Thompson-Pinder is. Now, she is the extraordinary word ninja and Chief Visionary Officer of RTI Publishing. I had to go with those words. In her bio, she just said she was the extraordinary word ninja, but I just thought, I love Chief Visionary Officer. So Kim didn't write for many years after a teacher told her that she was no good at writing and should stop. People, how many of you out there watching have heard those words? Yeah. And I have as well. Then she came to a crossroads and chose to let those painful words go. She set her words free and since then has gone on to author 5 books with 2 more on the way. Most importantly, Kim started RTI Publishing and has helped over 100 entrepreneurs to become authors and authorities. Kim understands the power of words and can't wait to share them with you on her Author to Authority podcast, which we were talking about. And that is at authortoauthority.com/podcast. Kim, let's get into your journey. Those words, we've all heard them, many of us, and I have myself. Just let's hear a little bit about your journey and how you overcome that mindset that had been set up in you.
Well, first, I want to just give a quick explanation why those words happen, because everybody hears it and they think, horrible teacher. But I had a role to play in her saying those words to me. When I was 4, my mother had died. And so any female teacher became a substitute mom. And in grade 2, the teacher I had, she was beautiful, she was wonderful, she was smart, she was kind, and she was a great teacher. And she was everything that I wanted to be. And, I'd go home every day and dream about the fact that my dad was going to marry her. I mean, she was probably married, but I didn't know. I thought my dad was going to marry her and, she was going to become my mom. And so in grade 2, I was very emotionally attached to her. And in grade 2, my vivid imagination could finally be set free because I could write sentences. And so I started writing stories and she liked them. And of course, my broken little grieving heart, that was all I needed. So over the course of time, I just started writing more and more. And so every day I was giving her like piles of paper with my stories. And I'm pretty sure she must have tried to slow me down. But I mean, she was my mom. There was no slowing me down. So, even though she said those words, I had a role to play in that. And that was part of my journey, was recognizing that role. But what I want to talk about is the effect those words had on me. So you need to know, I have forgiven my teacher for saying that. And I've also recognized that I played a part in those words. But those words did hold me back for 30 years. It was like a broken record going on in my head. And it's not that I didn't write at all. I mean, I passed high school English with honors. Obviously, I wrote something. And, every once in a while, I would journal and different things like that. And anytime I had to write for anything, I did. But I wasn't really writing what was in my heart. So it's not that I never wrote, but I wasn't allowing my full potential to come forward. I was always being held back by those words. And so in 2011, I'm now an entrepreneur. I want to help and encourage people who work from home. And I had an opportunity to get a website. And I mean, that was a big deal. And somebody was going to do it for me because, yes, you could do your own website back in 2011, but it was not easy. No. Even learning just how to use a pre-set up website was pretty hard. And so I got an opportunity to get a website. And I was all excited, you know, and they're working on the website. And the gentleman emails me and he says, yeah, now we get to set up your blog. I email him back. What's a blog? I have no clue. And he says, you have to write articles and posts. I don't remember reading anything past that because the words in my brain were screaming at me. You are not a writer. You should not write. And that was the crossroads I hit, you know, and that began a journey of soul searching, recognizing the role that I played, remembering that time, you know, forgiving my teacher, and then deciding I'm not that 7-year-old little girl anymore. And I passed high school English. In fact, I got honors in high school English, so I could write a decent sentence or two. And I finally came to the decision, well, I've already paid for this website. I wasn't going to get a refund on the money. And if I'm going to have a blog, I'm going to have to write something. So back then, I wrote everything out by hand and then typed it into the computer. Made it for a very long process. But I can tell you that, you know, over the course of those next 3 days, I probably had 30 to 50 sheets of crumpled paper because I'd start writing it, gone, right? And after those days, I had like a full page blog post. I don't know, maybe 200-300 words at most. Because I mean, you were talking a lined piece of paper here, right? And I put it up on my blog and I asked a couple of people to read it. And I sat there and just waited for their reaction. And they liked it. And of course, that's all my entrepreneur heart needed. Yeah. And I started writing more and more. And then come about 2012-ish, I knew I wanted to write a book. Now that was a big, scary goal. And I spent like 6 months. And by the end of 6 months, I still had not put a word to paper. Now, there wasn't a lot of writing courses back then. No. And the ones that were there were thousands and thousands of dollars, which I didn't have. And I came so close to quitting. Like I was a hairbreadth away from just, because for 6 months I'd been trying to write this book. And I was so fed up and I was so frustrated with myself. And even though I had let go of those words, they were coming back and whispering to me. And so finally, you know, I believe in God. So one day I sat there and I was just crying and I just said a prayer. I said, God, I don't know what else to do. You know, either I've got to figure this out or I'm just going to quit. I've got to drop it because I can't live like this anymore. And I believe God just spoke a little thought to me. He said, well, why don't you just write down all the ideas you have? And I thought, yeah, I can write down all the ideas. I mean, even if I don't have a book, if I write down all these ideas that have been rattling in my brain, I'll have blog posts for the next 4 years. Yes. So that's what I did. I just started writing ideas day and night. I'd have pen and paper beside me, and I couldn't turn on the light because I didn't want to wake up my husband. So I'd grab the paper and pen and try to position myself so I wouldn't move too much. And I'd be writing in the middle of the night in the complete darkness on a piece of paper and then trying to figure out what I wrote in the morning.
Love it. Yeah.
I did this for 3 weeks, and then I sat and I organized it. And it was like a light bulb went on. I suddenly realized what the problem was. I had 3 books I wanted to write, not one. That's why I couldn't figure out what to write about. Because I had 3 totally different topics that, you know, were kind of congruent, but not congruent enough to put together into a book. So once I did that, I was actually able to publish the first book within a few months, and in less than a year, I had published 3 to 4 books.
Awesome. And what was that first book? What was the name of that first book?
Network Marketing Recruiting, 50 low cost, mind you, I haven't looked at the book in a year, but 50 low cost ways to find customers and recruits.
Awesome. Do you still remember that first book? You do?
I do.
The feelings when you get that first book?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then 2015 hit. And in the meantime, I had played around with some different things. I figured out how to do Sudoku books.
My gosh.
Just because I thought it would be fun.
Oh, good. No, Sudoku books.
I actually published a few.
Oh, my gosh. Good for you.
Just because I wanted to learn how to do it.
Oh, the word Sudoku just leaves me like, oh, my gosh. Words I love. Numbers, forget it.
But in 2015, that was a year I had a lot of money coming out of my bank account. My son was getting married, and obviously, we wanted to support him as much as we could. But the big issue was we had 2 vehicles that absolutely had to be replaced. I mean, we were driving them by faith. So for those of you who have never driven a vehicle by faith, you get in the vehicle, you pray.
Yes.
That you get to where you're going. And for me, that's a half an hour into town. Do with the little things I do. Pray that I made it back home again. So we had those 2 vehicles. And one day I was sitting on a freelancing site, and I had this small thought come into my brain. You should check out writing jobs. Maybe you can take on a few writing jobs and, earn some extra money. And I started looking at jobs, and I went, they pay that? They pay that? Hey, wait, I can do that. I can do that really good. That was grammatically bad. But anyway, I was so excited my grammar was thrown out the window. And I started applying for jobs. And because I was already a published author, and you could go check out my books, you could read the reviews, you could read samples of the books, I got jobs right away. And very soon people wanted editing, they wanted cover design, they wanted all these things. And I could do all of them because I never had money to pay other people to do this stuff. So I learned how to do it all myself. Now, I got to admit, some things like graphic design, some of my editing skills are not the strongest, but they're okay, right? They're not my strong points. But writing and formatting, creating descriptions, all that kind of stuff, that was my forte. But I soon realized there was no way I could do all of this work by myself. So I started RTI Publishing. And since then, we have been growing. We have helped, at last count, it was well over 100, but it's actually probably 150 to 200 people now become authors. Many of them, their books went on to become international bestsellers. Now, being said, I didn't do the marketing for those books that became international bestsellers. So, there's always, you have to have a very well-written book, and you have to have good marketing. Yeah. So I could provide half of the formula. And yeah, it's just really grown from there. And now we work with entrepreneurs, professionals, and coaches. We ghostwrite, produce, and publish their signature book. And most of these people use it as a foundational marketing tool to build their business and position themselves as the authority in their niche. So it's not about selling books. It's about building a business around the book. And that's me in a few-minute nutshell.
That is an awesome journey. And I think out of that, people, you can take probably 4 or 5 gold nuggets that Kim has mentioned just in her story, that if you listen to those carefully, pull them out, then you're going to be able to apply them to what you're doing. And I think, there was mindset, because that is probably what stops everybody, not just with their books, but quite often from doing whatever their heart wants them to do.
Yes.
Because the mindset gets in there. And then you've got how you went about writing the book. And I thought, I'd just like to delve into that one just a bit. You've got a couple of tips for people who, and you work with a lot of people, I know, helping them to write their book. What would be 2 or 3 tips that you could say for someone who's staring at that blank paper like you were, ripping up the paper and throwing it away, or getting close to, I'm not going any further. So what are 2 or 3 tips that you would share with our people?
First of all, recognize that you're not writing your book to everybody. It's very hard to write a book to everybody. It's a lot easier to write a book to a specific group of people. And especially if you're using this, if you're an entrepreneur wanting to write like a nonfiction book, it has to be targeted because you want your book to provide a ton of value. You want people to see you as that expert in your niche. You want to answer people's questions so that they want to work with you. You can't do that effectively if you're writing to everybody. So, for example, right now I'm working on my Author to Authority book, which will be coming out this year.
Awesome.
And that is specifically targeted to entrepreneurs, let's say, making under $200,000 a year, you know, high-level professionals and coaches. So, you know, these are people who are relatively established in business, though people who are newer entrepreneurs would get value from the book too, but that's not who it's targeted to. And the book explains the power of becoming an author in your business and then how you use that book to build your business, get exposure, get that credibility, you know, generate a lot of leads for your business, transition from being invisible to visible and credible, and also be able to move from the one-to-one model to the one-to-many model. Most entrepreneurs tend to work in that one-to-one model. So that's, you know, you either go out networking online, in person, you know, you're talking to people individually on social media, you know, everything you kind of do is one-to-one. So you have to do it over and over and over and over again to get results. When you move to the one-to-many, that's when life starts to change and your business starts to exponentially grow because you're doing it once, but you're doing it to a whole group at a time, which means your results are doubled, tripled, 10 times, 20 times, 100 times, you know, depends on the size of the group that you're doing with, you know, so that can be speaking on stage, that can be being on podcasts, like being on Trish's Known Be Seen WebTV, you know, being on media and radio, and all of these places brings you into the one-to-many, and that's when your business can grow faster. So that's the first hint and tip. The second hint and tip is when you're writing a nonfiction book, well, 2 things. First of all, include some of your story. Don't be afraid to be a little bit vulnerable. Now, I'm not talking about you got to get into deep details, okay? Some people have gone through some horrific things, and that does not need to be in your book. But you do have to share through who you are and your journey, because you want to be relatable to the people. If you want people to work with you, they need to see that you understand who they are and what they're going through. And the best way to do that is to share your journey throughout your book. Third, you've got to be able to effectively address the problems and the issues that your reader is facing. And I mean deep dive. Yeah. And people say to me, but if I give it all away in the book, won't people not work with me?
Yes.
Here's the thing. It's a statistic. It's probably a made-up statistic, but it seems to be true, so I'll tell you it. About 97% of people in your target market are not self-sufficient, self-motivated enough to really do it on their own. And if your target market is entrepreneurs, man, we're just so busy and we're so tired at the end of the day, we really don't want to. So here's the hint. If your book is for entrepreneurs, we want to know how to do it. We just don't want to do it ourselves. Yeah. But we want to know that you know how to do it. So, you know, give everything away, because 97% of people will still want to work with you anyway. The 3% like myself who are extremely self-motivated and just tend to do it on our own, we appreciate having people to refer to because we get asked the questions all the time because we can do it. So it's like, no, I don't want to do it. But you know what? I read a book and I've got this friend and I got this person in my network who wrote this really amazing book. You go read that book and you go contact them, right? You know, those 3%ers tend to be really great referral people. So those would be the tips that I would share with you, you know, about writing your book.
Awesome. Awesome. And I think there's some great tips. Now, I love that last one because that one comes up quite a lot of people are really sort of, this information they've got, this message, it's like, oh my gosh, no, I'm not going to give that away. I've got to lock it up into a nice big casket with a huge lock on it, triple locks, hide it behind, and just open it up a little bit when someone actually finds me. Well, I'm sorry, people are not going to find you unless you put out your knowledge, and they're not going to want to work with you unless they know that you've got a track record. So yeah, I love that. Share that message out there. Absolutely get it out there.
And people also resent too when you kind of give them a nugget and then kind of go, well, if you really want the good stuff, you got to pay me for it. Like that doesn't create that trust in that relationship.
There is a fine line though, Kim, I would say that.
Well, yes.
You want to ask for some money at some stage, but it's okay to give and then ask, but you've got to give. I always say, you know, 200%, you give 200%, then you've built up a relationship, and then you can ask. You got to, but don't give all the time because we all got to eat.
Well, yes. Like, but what I mean, what I'm more referring to is don't be afraid to give it all away in the book.
That's right. Yeah. Put it in
you know, when it comes to your personal one-on-one time, that's a whole different story. Like I have a lot of people who talk to me about writing a book. So what I do is I offer 1 half-hour time period. There's some things we cover, and you can ask me any questions you want in that half an hour, and I will answer it. And most times the calls usually go 45 minutes, sometimes an hour. Okay, but I'm willing to give you 1 block of my time. You want help after that? You're either buying my courses or you're paying me for my time.
Yeah, and that is what something we have to all own. And unfortunately for women, we have a hard time doing that. Hard time, and some men as well. It's not exclusive, but we do have a hard time. And I say to people, you know, because I say, well, why should I? You know, I don't really want charged. And I say, excuse me, but you are asking them to pay you for your expertise and life experience that you have, not just what you've been doing in the last 30 minutes, but for everything you've done leading up to this time. Which brings me to challenges. What challenges are, we've discussed the major one of that mindset, you can't write, but what other challenges have you faced? Well, getting your publishing thing up, or getting known, being seen, or and getting your books out there?
Well, entrepreneur-wise, I think the biggest challenge for me has been letting go of some of the things in my business. You know, when you're doing 10 plus books at a time, I can't keep track of everything and I can't control everything. So, you know, over the last few years, I brought on a book project manager, and her job continues to expand and grow. But I you know, I keep an eye on things because ultimately it's my company. But, you know, more and more, you know, I trust her to deal with a lot of the situations that happen. And, you know, we talk about a lot of things. And if there's a situation she feels she can't handle, then she comes to me. You know, I help her deal with it. We go on. So, you know, it's important as an entrepreneur. But here's the thing, as an author and an entrepreneur. You cannot be afraid to shine. And you can't be afraid to get your book out there. Now, there are people who are slimy and salesy. We've all met them. We've all known them. And so we shy away from shining because we think we would be seen that way. But it's not the truth. When you are a heart-centered entrepreneur, when you shine, you just light up other people's worlds.
Yeah.
And I've come to the realization that I'm not for everybody, but I am for a specific group of people. And how dare I not shine for those who need me the most?
Absolutely. I would endorse that. being selfish. And people really have they really sort of stand back when I say, well, don't be selfish. And they say, well, I'm not selfish. I say, think about what you're saying. If you keep that book, if you keep that close, you're being selfish because someone needs to read it. Yeah. And you need to let them find it easily.
Yeah. And don't be afraid as an entrepreneur to go after business. And again, I'm not talking salesy, I'm not talking slimy, I'm not talking even aggressive.
No.
But I am talking consistent. And I am talking about confidence. I have made the decision, especially, I'll share my theme for 2019 for you. Awesome. I kept seeing the little emoji with the sunglasses on it. And back around the beginning of 2019, I just really felt in my spirit that 2019 was going to be my future's so bright I got to wear shades.
Awesome. Love it.
But to be honest, 2019 was a very hard year for our business. It started out really strong, but about halfway through, a lot of circumstances happened and I had to make some really tough decisions. And a lot of things happened where I couldn't move forward the way I wanted to. You know, I had to make a decision to step back on some plans that I had. That's why the book wasn't written in 2019, because I had things that had to take first place. And to be honest, I don't regret it. Don't regret it for 1 minute. It was hard. It was very hard. But in my life, I choose to put people first. And the decision that I made had to it was about somebody and about putting that person first. And you know what? I'm so glad I did. Because, you know, when my end of my life comes, you know, it's not going to be my clients or, you know, or my books that are going to be by my bedside. It's going to be those who I love and am closest to, you know, and they're the ones that are going to share my legacy. And so, you know, I came out of 2019 and I said, well, 2020, the future's so bright I got to wear shades because it couldn't get any worse than 2019.
Oh, so it's all your fault, Kim, is it? It's all your fault.
but the thing was that, like, it's not like everything was bad in 2019. Okay, like I had some really great things happen in 2019. I'm not talking personally. I'm just talking as an entrepreneur. It was a rough year. Yeah. I mean, I became a nana in 2019, and there is nothing sweeter than my little grandbaby's face that would have kissed those cheeks of his. And I can't for social distance.
It's all about being flexible, about putting some goals, but understanding that things come into place. But unless you are always striving to put those goals and being flexible and moving forward, you're not going to move forward at all.
Yeah.
So you start the year and you take into adjust what's happening. Kim, we could be talking for ages and ages. I know that. We have so much, and we probably haven't touched on just anything. Is there any one last thing that you want to say?
Yeah, I need about a minute because it's just really important.
Sure.
So I came out of that really rough time in 2019 to the beginning of 2020. And I said, you know what, it's time to renew the things I had been doing in the past, those core foundational things that had really been building my business. So I went back to basics again. And for 3 months, you know, just making relationships, filling that funnel, connecting with people I hadn't connected with in a long time. Like I just really went out there, and I knew it was going to take some time before a lot of business really started coming through. It wasn't that there wasn't any business, it just, I needed more. But I knew that it was going to take time to fill that funnel. And so I want to encourage you as an entrepreneur. You see, right now, my funnel is very full. In fact, my business is exploding all over the place. And I know that's weird to say in this 2020 COVID environment. But the point I want to make was, you know, I went through that period in 2019, you know, when the funnel was dry.
Yeah.
So if your funnel's dry right now, I understand. I've been there. Okay. But I spent 3 months before COVID-19 doing a lot of work and planting a ton of seed and watering it and all that. So now I'm getting the harvest. So don't waste this time in COVID-19. You know, don't sit there and binge watch Netflix.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying you can't watch shows. I watch shows. But don't make that your life. If you're an entrepreneur, continue to build your business. Continue, you know, even if you're not bringing in a lot of sales, continue to develop those relationships. Build that network. Make those connections. Get value out there to the people who need it the most. And I will guarantee you this. If you do those things and not at the same time be afraid to ask for the sale. Now, your sales ratio might be off a bit. You know, you may have to talk to more people, but I can tell you there's people with money out there who want what you have to offer. So, you know, do these things and you will come out of this with a bigger, better, and stronger business and a renewed vitality and energy to just really shine in 2020.
Absolutely. And I think those are very, very important words that we will probably finish almost on, because I think that's been one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people I've seen make. It threw them so much with this COVID-19. It was something that came so far out of left field for so many people that a lot of people just bunkered down and pulled the blankets over their heads, thought I can't do much. But those who are going to come out of this may be different. It's not going to be the same, but they're going to come out of it with renewed hope, renewed expertise, renewed energy, because they have still put that energy in all the way through. And I really agree with that. I think that's something that people you need to think about and you need to be taking on board.
And that circumstance last year, the two circumstances last year were completely unexpected.
Yeah.
You know, like it hit like COVID. Like, you know, one day was fine and perfect and life was good and business was growing, and then the next day it literally just came down like a wall, you know. And then 3 months later, as we thought we were getting out of this, you know, it just came down hard and fast. So I understand, like, and it happens, but it's how you respond that makes the difference.
And I think that's important. It's the only thing that you have absolute control over is you and your attitude, and you have absolute control over how you respond to issues. Too many times, and I see it all the time, people say, oh, COVID-19 stopped me. Oh, it wasn't me. It was the rain. It was the flood. It was that person because they just didn't like me. I'm sorry. It is really how you respond that is going to be the major factor on where you're going to go forward or you're going to go back. You are the person in control, and you're the person who responds. We could talk for hours just on that. Yes. So before we go, you have a little thing to give away because it's to do with your new book coming out. If you'd like to just share that.
Yeah, so if you'd like a free sample of the Author to Authority, so if you've liked the teaching I've given to you today, you're going to like the sample of the book. And so you can get it at www.authortoauthority.com/free-sample. So authortoauthority.com/free-sample.
Awesome. And people, that link will be below the video here as well, so you can click on that and connect. And if you just go to your website, they'll be able to connect with you there as well, Kim.
Yep. Awesome. And you can find me as Kim Thompson-Pinder on most social medias. I'm the only Kim Thompson-Pinder around. And if you go to authorauthority.com, you can find Trish's podcast episode. Listen to it.
Yes, people, you better do that as well. Thanks so much, Kim. It's been an absolute delight having you here with us on this particular session.
Well, thank you so much, Trish. I have so enjoyed this, and just have a lot of courage and take a lot of massive action.
People, You've been watching Get Known Be Seen WebTV with your host Trish Springsteen and our absolutely awesome guest today, Kim Thompson-Pinder, who has given us so many gold gems to take away that you're going to be wanting to watch this over and over, because you'll hear something about mindset and you'll think, oh wow, and that will trigger something. Then you're going to have to go back and listen again, because you'll have to catch up on the next particular gem, which is all those things about how to write your book, how to get it there, how to get over that. And then we've had some awesome gems on entrepreneurs and being able to be flexible and really pushing your way through. So you're going to be watching this one over and over, because every time that gem hits you, you're going to go off thinking, wow, and then you're going to have to go back and catch the rest. So Get Known Be Seen Web TV. It is all about helping you to get out there, get known and be seen. It's helping those who've got a book, a new business, a message, a new product or a service on how to come on board, get out there, make it easy for your people to find you. It's also about the experts who come on, who share with you their life experiences, their techniques, their strategies, their story, that helps you to see how you too can step up, get known, be seen. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, just comment below, or you can contact me on any of my social media. You can PM me. You can go to my website, which is trishspringsteen.com. If you want to if you're a book and you've got a book coming out, an author, you can join my book marketing club, which is all about how to repurpose and leverage your book, which is something that we've been speaking about today. And if you want to work with me, you can also get hold of me there on that website, trishspringsteen.com. And if you'd like me to be a guest on your show or to speak on your stages or MC, you can book me there as well. Most importantly, though, I enjoy what I do at the moment, which is being the host of Get Known Be Seen Web TV. Make sure you press that subscribe button, because then you'll always know when awesome episodes like this we've had with Kim come up, and you'll be able to come on and have a listen. Until next time, be awesome, write, and just think about the fact that keep going, don't hide, just keep moving forward, because if you don't move forward, you'll stagnate.